Welcome to the Coachzing Show, offering you the latest creative content marketing tips to help you work less, earn more, and help more people. Are you a coach zinger yet? Join the community where the world's best coaches, therapists, authors, and speakers come to discover the latest industry trends and partner with other like-minded professionals. Go to coachzing.com/community to join. And now, here's your host, Doug Foresta.
Hello and welcome back to the Coachzing Show. This is your host, Doug Foresta. As always, today I have Ben Krueger with me from Cashflow Podcasting and Authority Engine. We're going to be talking about podcasting, digging into podcasting. You all know that this is one of my favorite subjects. And Ben is really, really wise guy when it comes to podcasting. And I'm so looking forward to this conversation. He is actually I had the pleasure of being a guest on his show, which is a really awesome show, and I learned a lot just from how he sets up his show. So I'm like I said, I'm really looking forward to it. Ben Krueger, welcome to the Coachzing Show.
Doug, thanks so much, man. I'm thrilled to be here, excited to talk a little bit of shop, and yeah, man, this is going to be fun.
Awesome. Well, first of all, I want to also remember to send people to cashflowpodcasting.com. We'll give them that link again at the end, but can you say a little bit more about who you are and how you help people?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Ben Krueger. I run cashflowpodcasting.com, where we help coaches, consultants, and expert businesses start a podcast to grow their impact, grow their influence, and build their online brand, generally to actually drive more traffic to their existing offers. So we don't focus necessarily on sponsorships and some of the more traditional podcast monetization streams. We really focus on using podcasting as a tool to grow and leverage the brand that you've already got, and to really up-level the platform online of an online expert. So that's a little bit about me. That's how we help folks out. We've kind of got the full soup to nuts done for you option. We more recently released a course option for folks. And so that's a little bit about Cashflow Podcasting. I guess about myself, I'm a outdoor adventurer. I'm a marketer. I'm a world traveler currently living in Boulder, Colorado, and just thrilled to be here and chatting with you, man.
Awesome. And how did you get started in podcasting? I don't actually know the answer to that.
Actually, I had a really good friend of mine who was a podcaster, and he was talking to me about how big of a pain doing post-production was, doing all the editing and show notes writing. And he was talking about how he loved doing the recordings, but doing everything between, once you're done recording and actually publishing the dang thing, he was not a big fan of. So on the spot, I was just kind of chatting with him. I had done some work with podcasting prior, and a lot of work with video and a lot of work with blogging. So we kind of made a handshake deal that I would help him out with his podcasting stuff. And so he became my very first client. This is Dan Andrews from the Tropical MBA podcast. I don't know if you're familiar.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so he became my first client. And from there, it just kind of clicked on both sides, started picking up a few clients for doing podcast editing. And that's when I really realized the marketing potential of a podcast. So for Dan particularly, they have an online community or membership site for people who live and work from anywhere from their laptops. And I got to see how this podcast was literally taking their community from, a small group of about 100 members to now, I don't know what it's at, but it's well over 1,000. And the podcast was a major, major reason for that. So I got to see that firsthand. And that's what got me excited about essentially starting to help people who are experts, who have value to share, start using podcasting as an effective marketing tool. So that's where this thing really took off for me, is when I got to kind of see how podcasting was used as a tool and how I could help other people use it more effectively.
Well, I'd love to dig into your thoughts on how you think, for example, you had said that you don't do sponsorship. I'm really curious for you. What do you think are the primary benefits of a podcast? Or the other way that I will frame this is, why do you think somebody should consider starting a podcast?
Yeah. So I suppose my answer will probably tailor more towards the first half of that question in that when it comes down to it, obviously there's the classics, it's content on demand. People can listen to it on the go. So they're not, they don't have to dedicate time to pay attention to you. You can fit into their busy schedules. But really when it comes down to it as a marketing tool, podcasting covers two really important things. One, it's by request. People check out your podcast by request. It's not like an ad. You're not jumping out and trying to capture a bit of their attention. They literally see your content and either subscribe or check out the podcast because it's something that they're interested in, and they take the action of learning more directly from you, of engaging with you. So it's not kind of the typical advertising version of marketing to where you just try to grab a little bit of somebody's attention while they're trying to do something else.
Yeah, it's inbound. It's inbound, not push marketing.
Exactly. So it's inbound marketing, and it's inbound marketing on a recurring basis, which is fantastic. So that as a core principle is kind of the one chunk that I'm really excited about. And the other is especially as personality brands, as individuals online who have value to share, the most valuable thing that you can build online is a community of individuals who are really passionate about your topic area, who trust you and who kind of follow what you've got to share it with other people. Obviously, buy stuff from you if it can help them, if it's products or services or whatever it may be. But what podcasting allows you to do is to very easily build a community of like-minded individuals who are very often your best prospects and your best leads for whatever your product or service or program is that you offer. So because it's inbound and it's, they raise their hands and essentially qualify themselves, and then pair that with the fact that it allows you to essentially build a community and to build a really deep connection with that community, it really kind of becomes a marketer's dream to where you can kind of match those two up and build an incredible trust-based relationship with your audience, which, especially in this personality space, is so important.
So let me ask you another question, because this is another one that I know that people struggle with, which is, okay, I've started my podcast. It's on iTunes, it's on Stitcher, it's in all the usual places. But how do I get people to actually listen to the podcast? And how do I, you're saying build a community, but can you say a little bit about how for example, how you've helped people actually get traction and get listeners and get it going, especially for a new podcast?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a few things that you can take advantage of as a new podcast, one of which is iTunes New and Noteworthy, which I'm sure you guys have chatted about, so I'm not going to go into that. Essentially, the approach that we take is if you promote a new podcast well, iTunes New and Noteworthy is like icing on the cake. Right. It's kind of like a bonus, But what I find works best is podcasting is very much a community resource. It's very much something that if it doesn't solve a very unique problem, or it doesn't offer value to the community, then you're going to find out about it pretty quick due to kind of a podcast that's just not taking off very well.
Right.
So that said, when we reframe it as this is a community tool, what it comes down to is we need to share our podcast with all of the online communities where our best listeners are hanging out. And you see a lot of people do this they try to post up in Facebook groups or LinkedIn groups, say, hey, check out my show. And it's very, it's very much about them. It's not about the listener.
Right, exactly.
And, if you've been in Facebook groups, you've seen this a ton of times, and you just kind of do the eye roll because you're like, okay, here's another dude or gal just trying to promote themselves. But what I found works really well is, number one, your podcast, just like any product or service you offer, should have its own USP. It should have its own like, what is the value proposition of your podcast? What's that one sentence? Like, this is what we're about, and this is what people will get from being a part of the show and from checking out the show. And the reason I say that is because once we're really clear on the USP, because podcasting is a very free resource, and because especially in this online community, people are always looking for valuable content and resources to share with their audience. So as a podcast, we can frame our new podcast as a valuable tool or resource for other people to share with their audiences. So generally, what I find works really well is to get a very clear list of, if I want to attract my perfect target listener, I'll go on to Facebook and find Facebook groups with exactly those listeners in it. I'll find LinkedIn groups. I'll find other places where people congregate online in groups and that have a clear leader. This way, I can reach out to that leader directly. Maybe I shoot him a Facebook message or a LinkedIn message, but usually it's about a 2-sentence quick ping saying, hey, we just launched this new podcast specifically for these individuals that will help them achieve X result.
Yeah.
We just recorded the episode number 2 where we talked about this exact topic. If your audience would be interested, let me know. I'll shoot you a link and you can share it with them. And I know that sounds a little like vague, but it works impressively well. It works surprisingly well when you frame it as, hey, this is a free resource. This is the value that it has. Would you like to check it out more, and you can share it with your audience? And that way, in the Facebook groups, in the LinkedIn groups, in people's email lists, if it's coming from the person who has been the leader of that group, you see immediately how much more trust and how much more engagement that's going to get than somebody going in and saying, hey, check out my podcast when they post on somebody's Facebook group. Does that make sense?
It does. And it very much, what you're saying, it very much goes with this is what I believe too. People say, how do I do it? How do I build a community? One of the things I always say is, it's like if you walk into a party, right? And there's 100 people in the party and 10 of them are having a conversation about car repair. And you're going to have a podcast about car repair. Does it make sense to go sit in the other corner, 100 feet away from those people and just start talking to yourself, or go over and start talking to the people who are already talking about car repair? So To me, it's like, go where people are. I don't care what it is you start a podcast about. Someone's having a conversation about it online somewhere, right? So join the conversation.
And as a kind of a side bonus of that, if you are in a space or in a market and there's a Facebook group or a LinkedIn group around that topic, you should probably know who runs that Facebook group anyways.
Right.
And if you don't now, this is a darn good opportunity to connect with them and actually have something to share and not be, check me out.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, I have an ebook.
Exactly.
So I've started my podcast. I've got out there. But somehow I don't know what happened. John Lee Dumas has 1 million downloads. I'm not getting 1 million downloads yet. It's been 3 months. So it must be a failure, right? No, I'm kidding. But can you say a bit about download numbers and your thoughts about numbers and like?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, this is one of my favorite things. So really, when it comes down to it, download numbers are simply a reflection of the audience that you reach right now. And I know that's kind of a very obvious thing. However, think about it. If your email list is 1,000 people, let's say, and you launch your podcast, you share it with your email list, you share it with a couple of online communities, and now you've got, let's say, you get 400 downloads for an episode, that's great. What I've discovered is it really doesn't make a huge difference how large that number is. And so keep in mind here, there's a very big difference between if your sole monetization focus is I got to get sponsorships, then yes, you need numbers, and that's the name of the game.
Right.
However, if you are podcasting to build a community, to build a relationship with your audience, to offer them your product, services, and offers, and not through, just being super salesy on your podcast, but through actually building trust and building a community and a relationship there, then you don't really want numbers. What you want is fit. So for every one of those people that's downloading and listening to your podcast, are they the right prospect for your company and for the group or the community that you're trying to build? So I always try to think of it more from a angle of, okay, how targeted is our podcast?
Right.
And that's the part that is so much more important when it comes to using it as a business tool. Now, obviously, downloads, I like to think of it as kind of like a vanity metric. It makes you feel good.
Right.
You can puff your chest up a little bit.
You can't eat downloads.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like people that have a massive social following, but don't really ever engage with that social following, or they don't really ever, add value in a way that makes an impact in some way, or draws them in to actually get more value from their products or services. So the download numbers obsession is kind of a silly one when it comes down to it. But the important part is you want to be able to reach your audience that you already are connecting with via email, via social media. So obviously you want to be able to connect with those individuals. And then generally I find the podcast plays two vital roles when it comes to marketing. Number one, it's the resource that people can discover you through. So if they're cruising around iTunes and they're looking for something to check out, or they're checking out Google and they come across an interview of you, or they come across the podcast content. Or the third part there is if you record content and you create podcast episodes that are so good that your audience shares them with their network, or specific people in their network because they know it's going to hold value, that's an absolute win. So obviously we've got kind of the initial discovery aspect. So that's where podcasting can really play big. And then number two, we all know that when somebody connects with us as a business, they may be the perfect prospect. They may stand to gain the most value from what we've got to offer. It's just not the right timing yet. Maybe they're not ready to pull the trigger. Maybe they're working on other projects and they don't have time to work with us to achieve whatever goal that they're going for. But we all know as people in this space that a lot of the leads that are really good prospects for us are not in the right spot to move right now.
Yeah.
What podcasting does incredibly well is it adds value over time consistently, and not only allows those people to stick around until they are ready to move forward, but it can literally help them get to the point where they're ready to move forward through your content, through what you're sharing, and through the value that you're putting together with the podcast.
Yeah, it warms people up. I definitely feel that that's true. I think of it like it can warm people up. I think it does the same thing for people who might be on the fence about, let's say, joining your email list. And
Definitely.
Right?
Definitely.
And then they go to your podcast page and they binge out on 10 podcasts, and then they go, this guy Ben is a cool dude. Like, I do want to be on his list.
Yeah, and here's one thing that I have been doing with our clients recently and seeing a lot of incredible results with is bake social proof into your podcast episodes. You don't have to do this in a salesy way, and if you do it in a non-salesy way, it's much better. But what this can look like is, let's say you've got an episode and you're going to be talking about a particular topic with your interview guest. And as you introduce the episode, you say, hey, we're going to be talking about X and X topic. We've got John on the line, really excited to get into it. Before we do, I want to give a really quick shout out to one of the people in our inner circle, Ted. Last week, Ted, implemented some of the things that we talked about, and Ted is really excited that things are moving forward for him. Essentially, you just share people around you that are taking action and that are getting some sort of a result. It doesn't have to be massively, they don't have to be tripling their income overnight. Right. It could just be the fact that they see themselves and their business in a new light and are moving forward. But what it does is it really builds this very positive social proof around you, around your brand, and the fact that you actually help people get results, because that's what it comes down to. You're trustworthy, what you do works, and you're there to help and serve.
Ben, this is just such great stuff. I want to make sure that people understand what you do, because you can help someone if they're like, oh yeah, I totally get, I need to start a podcast, but I don't really know how to get started with this. Yeah, please tell our listeners like how you help people. I know you shared a little bit at the beginning, but definitely if you can talk about your done for you services and again how people can reach you.
Yeah, so our done for you service is pretty much for those folks who are really set on, they're focusing on their business, they're focusing on growth, and they're the front stage person, and they really don't want to deal with the tech. They don't want to deal with the hassle behind actually setting everything up and getting it all going and having to know all the strategies behind things. So that's kind of what the done for you solution is for. But I'll tell you what, Doug, the most common questions I get from folks, around tech, they're around, what should my topic be about now that I know who the podcast is for? Who, should I even be podcasting? Is my business like a good fit for using podcasting as a marketing tool? Kind of some of the classics. So I put together a free little 10 video mini course that addresses these core questions, and I'd be thrilled to share it with your audience if that sounds like a good fit, man.
Yeah, definitely. Of course.
Awesome. Well, I'll set it up at cashflowpodcasting.com/zing. How's that?
Great. Excellent. That sounds great.
Cool. And that course, a little mini course, addresses all of the core concerns that I see over and over and over again. So if you've got a question that is coming up in your mind around podcasting, I'm more than likely I address it in that little 10 video series, and that will help you, very importantly, decide whether or not podcasting is even for you.
Ben Krueger, thank you so much for coming on today and sharing your words of wisdom. I so appreciate it.
Thank you, Doug. This has been a blast, man. I always love talking shop.
Thank you. So thank you, everyone. I do want to encourage you. That's cool. We'll put that link on the show page, cashflowpodcasting.com/zing. And I definitely do encourage you to check out Ben's work. He also does editing as well. So if you have a podcast and you're like, oh my God, I'm drowning in editing, he can help you with that as well. And I want to encourage you to, if you've not subscribed to the podcast, go to iTunes, click the subscribe button. You'll get new episodes each week, helping you to work less, earn more, and help more people through creative content marketing. Till next time, this is Doug Foresta at the Coachzing Show.
Thanks for listening to the Coachzing Show. Need help getting your book out of your head and onto paper? Need help marketing your books or speaking engagements? We can do it for you. Go to Coachzing.com to learn more. Are you a Coach Zinger yet? Join the Coach Zingers community where the world's best coaches, therapists, authors, and speakers meet. You'll get exclusive access to private mastermind calls where you can get instant marketing help from industry experts. Plus, we'll help you forge deals and partnerships with other like-minded professionals. Go to CoachZing.com/community to join now.